everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
It's very early. I'm surprised so many people showed up, so thank you for that. I'm very honored to be here. The auditorium at Tech usually is very nicely done, and it's really cool to have you guys here. So now you know me, right? It was a great introduction, but I actually don't know you yet. So I do want to know a little bit more about you guys as well. So we're going to have a little general overview. I'm going to make some questions. You're going to raise hands or make some comments. So who of you is going to work in the industry? Nobody? Okay, so what is it? Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey? What are you going to do? What are you looking for? Medicine? Good. Engineering, okay, but not the industry. You're going to stay at the university? Investigation? What's your plan?
I really don't know right now.
Okay, engineering, very good.
Law.
Law, very good. Perfect. So, at the end, this university or this prepa also gives you the opportunity to go into manufacturing, to go into industry. And I'm going to try to do some sales pitch here today. So, because you still can decide, right, if you're going to get excited about this topic. So, me personally, I also investigate a lot and I think a lot about experts. What is an expert, right? How we can challenge an expert. What do we need in the industry? How does the industry actually look like? Who of you have been in a manufacturing plant? Automotive plant? Yeah, you have visited? How was it? What did you see there?
A lot of cables.
A lot of cables? Yeah, that's true. That's actually true. Everything is connected now. It wasn't like that, right? Most of the stuff was hydraulic back then.
Machines and workers.
Machines and workers, yes. Did it look inviting to you? Is it something that you're looking forward to work in an environment like that?
Pretty awesome.
Small things, I don't like.
Okay. Gotcha. Very cool. Okay. So thanks for that. That gives me a little bit of an understanding as well. So I'm going to make a little bit broader the talk, including some stuff that maybe apply for medicine, maybe apply for other things like law, and we have to focus on that. Okay, let's get right into it. So this is me. Some of the stuff you already had, right? So I was born in a little town in Austria in 1981. It represents a cow because actually in that little town, it's so small, we have more cows than people. We really only have like 300 people and 500 cows. So actually it was really small town. But at the end, where you come from doesn't really limit you to where you can go. So that's the first message. Then Formula Student, that was the car. That's actually me driving the car. That was really a lot of fun. Every student project that you can work on that really excites you is one of the best things that can accelerate your career actually. Then I went into robotics automation, moved to Mexico, built a little family, the beautiful 2 kids, my wife here from Hermosillo, and then I did some other stuff, lots of travel, lots of international stuff regarding projects, and of course I finally did my pilot license 4 years ago, which taught me a lot about leadership, communication, also mindset, and of course risk management, which is very interesting that people usually don't think about piloting a plane from a risk management perspective. Anything else that you want to know about me, right? This is the moment. I know we're going to have a question and answer session, but if you want to know any personal stuff, any professional career stuff, this is a good moment to ask.
For actually studying engineering, did you study in English? Did you study in German? Or what were your opportunities at the time regarding
Sure.
studies?
So I also did a technological prepa, like what you would have here. So in Austria there is something, they call it an HTBLA, which is a state, a government school that teaches you technology or technological stuff from age 15 to 20, right? And I finished with an engineering degree, which here would be something similar like a bachelor. It was all in German, so I didn't know an English word until I was like 18. So yeah, language came way after. I already knew all the basics of technology and technique, right? So yeah, a good question.
That car has the Hermosillo. Were you sponsored?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, right after the first year, we went to Red Bull, which at that time they started in Formula One as well. Actually, they just had started to sponsor Sauber, the racing team Sauber. So yeah, we were Hangar 7. You know, have you heard about Hangar 7? Hangar 7 is a great facility they have in Salzburg where they have posted all their cars. They were very supportive. They supported us with money and also lots of energy drinks. So yeah, we needed them because we worked long nights. They still sponsor the team actually. Okay, so today I want to talk innovation. I want to talk experts. So we're gonna demystify a little bit what an expert actually is. What does it take you to become an expert? That might be interesting for you as well, because maybe you want to become a medicine doctor expert, right? In this field, actually, it's very interesting how they have to repeat the same operation and the same task many, many times to become an expert. So, first of all, I want to set a plain level field, and of course, Ms. Catalina, she also always talks about innovation in education. So this is where we actually match together, and we're talking about that today. So I want to define some terms, because what I've seen in innovation, the first real learning was everybody defines innovation differently, right? So for every person, the innovation is very different, right? In industry, innovation is different than in education, than in other fields. So I want to set what it is for me, so you understand the context where I'm coming from. And then the importance of expertise in industry. We're going to see a little bit how many repetitions it takes to get there. We're going to go through some learning. How do we actually learn? How do we become better? And then at the end, we're going to go into manufacturing, which is really what I'm very excited about. So with all these machines, I'm going to try to explain a little bit better how these systems actually work and how exciting they are, at least for me. Okay, cool. So innovation in a pure technical perspective is the process of making new products, processes, proposal or business models to create added value for users, customers, and employees, right? So it's very, very broad, right? But it has to do with some next step, right? Something better. And here is the first question for you guys. So what's your division? What's innovative for you, for example?
Something that has never been seen.
Something that has never been seen, yeah. Very much out the innovation curve, right? If you see it as a curve.
Maybe creating or proposing an idea for a new product.
That's very interesting that you touched the idea point, and I have 2 spare slides at the end of the presentation. If we have the time, we can talk about ideas and how ideas become innovation and products. Because that's very interesting, because an idea is not a product, and definitely not a product that's successful with the people. So thank you for that. Let's see how much time we have. I think we have about 50 minutes, right? Perfect, yes. I think we can get to that idea part as well.
Yes, I think that innovation means progress.
Progress, for sure. Very interesting, yeah. Definitely, usually when something new is adopted, it has to be faster, smarter, lighter, more cheaper, right? So that kind of progress. I like it. And what do you feel, and how do you feel a new innovative product? How does it feel when you touch something that's very innovative for you? Because you mentioned the point that said it's new for you, it's new for the country, it's new for the world, you know, it's new for the industry. Can something that has already been done in one industry be innovative for another industry, right? Or something that has been done in one country all of a sudden become very innovative in another country. So that's also very interesting. So new doesn't necessarily mean innovative, because it can already be very much broad-based adopted in another country. And how much better does something have to be so you actually change from what you have? Have you ever thought about that? How much better does something have to be so you would say, I make the change,
Just a little bit, right?
well, really?
I think so. No, I think a lot of change.
Well, it depends, right? It depends. Look, and I think everything applies. If it's something that you're actually very comfortable with already, a product that you're not really bothered by, then the barrier or the jump the new product or service has to make so you would change has to be big. For example, how many people have changed from Uber to InDriver or to Cabify? It's the same, right? So if you're happy with Uber, you're going to stick with Uber, right? We actually call this term the stickiness of a platform or a service, right? How many people would change from this university to another university? How much would they take, right? How much is the barrier for you to actually take this decision, right? First of all, it has to do with the satisfaction of your current service, and then it has to do with the barrier of where to jump. But then on the other side of stuff that we actually dislike, right? Stuff that we're not happy with. Probably if you get introduced into something that's going to make your life better, you're going to adapt faster or quicker. You're going to make that change easier. And also something very interesting, the level of innovation, for example, on something that we didn't even know that we need. Imagine that, right? Sometimes people invent a product that we didn't even know that we need. Can you think of something like that? And then we adopt it.
The straw that was metal,
I
like
didn't
the
know.
reusable straw from the iPhone.
Exactly. Cellular phones, right? Cellular phones is something that we didn't even know we would need, right? Because we would be able to pick up the phone and call somebody, right? But then all of a sudden this cellular phones comes in, and those guys developed a solution to a problem we didn't even know we had, right? So this is also very interesting. So there's different parts to it, and we need to understand it has to do with what we currently have, and also the amount of pain that we would have go through if we change, right? So that's very much interesting. So it can be very little that it has to be better, but it also can be a big change, right? I see it, for example, in systems in companies, right? For example, do you know what companies, how do they organize? How do they do their financial numbers? What systems do they use? Do you know that? Yes, computer, but software-wise, what do they use? How is this software called?
Excel.
Well, the smaller companies and then the bigger companies, they use. Have you heard of a company called SAP? No?
SAP.
SAP, yes, SAP. Here they call it SAP. Right? What is SAP?
It's a accounting platform.
Exactly. They call it ERP, right? So it's an ERP platform. And imagine a company changing from SAP to another company. What would that mean for a company? Right? It's a huge change. So it's very little probable, even if a much better product comes, that they will change that, right? And that there's companies that literally are struggling with that right now, and they still wouldn't change, right? And there's something cheaper, faster, everything out there, and they still wouldn't adapt it because they're so stuck with their current system, okay? Very good. So much on innovation, right? You talked about progress, right? We just touched the point of organization, how we organize ourselves, right? How do we measure stuff in our systems so we know that we're actually progressing, right? And all the research stuff, right? I'm not even talking about everything the scientists do, right? Scientists do research and development, they come up with very innovative stuff, but it still doesn't mean that this is going to be adopted or some idea or even a proven concept becomes a product. And we're going to touch on that at the end of the talk. So I want to go into the two types of innovation that I have identified, which is one is called the sustaining innovation, and the other one is called the disruptive innovation, right? And this basically, everything I just said over the last 5 minutes is englobed in these two things, right? So for a sustaining innovation is an improvement on the current experience or product that you have, right? Resource optimization, something slightly better, usually something based and built on something that we already had. And then we have the disruptive innovation, which is something, a future need, right? And for the future need, there's something really interesting. Have you seen this chart? Who has seen this chart? They call it the diffusion of innovation, right? So it turns out turns out that once we have developed something, like an iPhone, right? It isn't adapted by everybody at the same time. Because the benefit usually is the same for everybody. But not all 8 billion people in the world adopted the iPhone from day one. So, turns out that there is 5 cohorts of people, right? The first 2.5%, the innovators. So those would be the guys and girls that would adopt it first. Those would be the guys that take their camping tent and sit in front of the Apple store and go overnight, right? And be in the line for 2 days to get the first phones, right? The crazy guys and girls. So actually those, if you think about it, they will even pay an extra amount to be the first to use it. Right? So for them, the risk that what they're adopting is actually failing is huge, right? And the value they are obtaining is usually not as big because the product at the beginning usually has some bugs and failures to it, right? But they still want it, right? The guys that drive the Teslas first, right? The guys, for example, even in the houses, right? If you have a new building complex, right? The guys that move in first, right? It's a mess. If you move in a house or a department tower and you're the first one to live there, it's a hassle, right? The climate is not working, everything has problems, the cleaning is not working, right? But you want to be there, you want to be the first one to that, okay? So there's risk and opportunity here. And then there's the next group, which is called the early adopters, right? So the early adopters is the group that has the biggest value to risk profit. So they get the most value divided by the risk that they are taking. Because with this group, it's already proven, usually the product goes through one cycle, right? It gets improved. And then those guys, they get the biggest value for the risk that they take. And then after that, every technology goes through something that's called the chasm. What do you think that means, the chasm?
It's whether you decide a product is good or bad.
Well, that's true, yeah.
The space in which the product either goes like viral and spikes up or it fails.
Actually, that stage is even before that, right? But the chasm is a point where people actually realize what the technology can do and cannot do, right? For example, who knows virtual reality, augmented reality? What do you think about that?
It's pretty cool, but it's still defective.
Okay.
It can make progress.
Exactly. But if you think about virtual reality, a year ago, everybody was thinking that in 2 years we're going to all run around with the glasses and there is no classroom anymore, no people interaction anymore, right? But right now we realize that there is a place for everything. So they call it the valley of despair, right? When we actually realize what it can do and what it can't do. So there is some pessimism that comes into the product and technology, and people realize what it actually is and not is, okay? So it goes through the chasm. It's usually emotionally difficult, and the companies, right, if the companies go through that, they go through some bumpy roads, and then it picks up and it gets adopted by the early majority, then by the late majority, and ultimately at the end, after 10, 20, 30 years, it gets adopted by the laggards, which is the people that latest adopt some innovative product or technology. So we need to understand that as well, right? Because at the beginning you're always going to have this huge hype, but these people are actually willing to pay extra, right? And take some additional pain to adopt this technology, right? The big group that has to be convinced that the product has to be flawless is the early adopters, okay? The early majority, sorry. Okay, so now let's go into the experts, right? Because I think the term expert is really something that people struggle with, right? And everybody has a different definition, and it also has changed over time. So you can see, right, an expert in 1980, who was the expert there? Most of you weren't born, I was born. Used back then when we had experts, big gray beard, right? 60 years, maybe out of a university, then worked at a research institute. Those people were actual experts used it. Most of them had written books. They even were like the experts in their field, right? And then it kind of changed over time, right? And recently, it turns out that people with different level of age and different level of fields as experts. And I think that's actually a positive development. It's not meant to be something that Karen on Facebook actually doesn't know what she's talking about. Actually, I think there is people that do social media content that know much more stuff about what they do than most of the industry leaders, right? So for me, I just want to make the awareness that the term expert over time has been very much changed. So there is one phenomena which I actually disagree, which is this phenomena. Have you seen this? A 2022 expert, metaverse expert, and then metaverse is actually not a thing anymore, and he disappears for some time and comes back as an artificial intelligence expert. Have you seen that? Somebody talks about the metaverse and VR, and then a year later, right? It's not a thing anymore, so they come back as an AI expert. That's something that's actually not positive for people, right? Because at the end, expertise has to be built up, right? There is, and I did an interview with a woman. She is called Alicia. She was doing artificial intelligence for 15 years now, right? 15 years. So I did an interview 3 years ago when artificial intelligence was no thing at all, right? And all of a sudden ChatGPT comes out and everybody uses it. I use it as well. And now everybody's an AI expert, right? So we need to really understand who are the people that are in here for the hype, right? And who are the people that actually have the profound knowledge and have gone through the repetitions. So with this, before we go into the portion of what it actually takes to become an expert, I want to show you something which is really important so you understand this at your age. Because I can remember in university I did a mentorship program. So what we would have is, we would be maybe in 3rd or 4th semester, right? Medicine doesn't carry engineering. And then we would help the ones that just got into engineering. Have you heard about the program? Do you have this program here? Do you do something like this here? Yeah, maybe in university you do it, right? So you have somebody that is 6th semester that helps 1st semester. Why do you think this is good?
So they both get better at the subject.
Yes, and the interesting thing is, the person that gets actually better the most is the one that shows the topic. So this is actually what this shows, right? This pyramid shows. For you to be able to show something to somebody else or teach, during this process, you also benefit, right? You also benefit, and actually you benefit the most. Because if you, this is retention rates, right? So if, for example, this talk today, where would this be here? Well, somewhere in here, right? So this is passive teaching, right? This is passive teaching to you today. So most of the stuff is new for you, right? Maybe a little bit distracted, 7 a.m. in the morning, so it's tough, right, to pick all this stuff up. But the one that actually takes a lot out of here, takes the most out of here, am I. And that's why I also teach, and that's why this applies a lot, right? We don't teach, or I don't teach because I'm an expert. I am an expert because I teach. So if you think about it, it's also very selfish, right? So for people to do all these talks, during all these years that I've been doing talks, I have learned the most because I have to prepare, and then I have to try to come up with this red line throughout the presentation to bring this to you. So whenever you have an ability to show something to somebody, or somebody asks you to help you in some field or some specific topic, always try to help them learn it, because you will benefit the most, right? You will benefit the most. The 10,000 hour rule. Who has heard about that? What does the 10,000 hour rule say?
More repetitions means like more, you are an expert.
Really interesting. Did you hear what he said?
Yeah.
He said
More repetitions.
Repetitions. So it turns out that I said 10,000 hour rule, and he said 10,000 repetitions. And that's actually true. And I didn't find any content on repetitions, but the younger, over the last 5 years, it has turned out that it's actually repetitions, not hours. So if there is a task that you can do in 5 minutes, you can potentially become an expert earlier. But if there's a task that takes a day, or 2 days, or a week, it's going to take you much longer to become the expert. But anyway, the 10,000 hour rule to master your craft, right? So this is something that I took just to make the math, right? The other day I saw a video of Kobe Bryant. That was very interesting. Kobe Bryant, he was 14 years old, he went to a summer basketball camp, right? He went to a summer basketball camp. During the 6 years period, he did not score a single point. Can you believe it? In a training camp? Right? A single point. He said everybody else was stronger, faster, better than him. So what he did is, he sat down and he looked at how much those guys were training per week. So those guys were training Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1.5 hours. So that's 4.5 hours. And then he would have a game on the weekend, right? So 6 hours. And he said, if I want to get better, what do I have to do?
Train more than
Exactly. So he said, I got to train 2 hours on their days, another half an hour in the intermediate days, some strength training, and then do 2 games on the weekend. By the next summer, he was better than everybody. So during 1 year of outpacing them in the repetitions, he actually got ahead of the game, and then he just compounded on that. That was really interesting. So this is what this table shows you, right? 10,000 repetitions. Thank you for that change from hours to repetitions. I actually believe that depends on the length of the task. So if you do, and this is how many years it's going to take you, and this is how many hours or repetitions you're going to put in per week, right? So if you put in 20 repetitions per week, it's going to take you 9.6 hours to get to 10,000, 9.6 years to get to 10,000 repetitions. If you put in 80 hours a week, or 80 repetitions a week, which is quite a lot, I can tell you, it's only going to take you 2.4 years. But is 10,000 actually the ultimate level? Have you thought about it? So I came up with this, right? That's actually my content. So it turns out, and there is a very interesting video on YouTube of a guy that learned like an instrument, and he made a video after every step, right? So he said, I started from 0. After 1 hour of playing this instrument, I was here. After 8 hours, 20 hours and stuff. And he found out that after 40 hours, you're pretty much able to do whatever task you want in a pretty average fashion. Right? You're probably even better than 90% of the people in that task after only 40 hours. But people would refuse to put 40 hours into it. Can you believe it, right? So the threshold to get over this 90% of the rest of the people is actually only 40 hours. So I reflected, because when I did the pilot license, when do you think that I was able to fly the plane alone for the first time?
40 hours. 40 hours.
Well, that's when I got my license to fly. When do you think they did the first time? They call it the first solo.
8
First-
hours. 8 hours. 20.
20 hours. Can you believe it? So 20 hours of flying a plane from 0. They let you fly this plane alone. Right? So you're able to start, you're able to land, you're able to communicate, you're able to track, navigate, right? So it's really interesting. So after 20 hours, they let you fly this plane alone. And it really shook me, because at the end you think about it. If you think of a pilot, how many flight hours does a regular airline pilot have? 8,000. 8,000. So the gap from 40 hours fly a plane alone to average airline pilot 8,000 hours is huge, right? And you're down here somewhere. But still, being able to do it comes actually pretty quickly, right? So above 90% of the average, I don't even think that 90% of the people let's say how many people would have a pilot license, I don't even know. I need to investigate that. But after 40 hours, paying some money, studying some theoretical stuff, there is also, this is 40 flying hours, and then you have to have 40 theoretical hours, but that's not much, right? It's 100 hours. You get your license, you can rent a plane and fly it. So, this is non-linear, as you can see, right? So the initial 40 to 400 hours, the gain is huge that you make in the field, and then it becomes very, very flat. Interesting thing to understand. And then 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, that's actually something I took from a book. It's called Mastery. Have you read the book? Mastery. Very good book. It's kind of big, but you can also do audiobooks. I do audiobooks a lot. I think it's a great tool. So the guy in Mastery, he investigates 8 grandmasters between obviously historical figures like Mozart and those people, but then also younger people. One woman, she's an expert in robotic arms or robotic hand prosthesis, right? So he also shows how she became an expert in that, and how she did so many repetitions on that specific topic that she became the top bionic arms expert in the US, and she came originally from India. So in this book, he actually shows what has to happen for a person to become like this PhD level, 10,000 repetitions, to this 20,000 hours masters, to this 30,000 hours grandmaster. It's really, really interesting, right? If you think about, when you hear grandmaster, who do you think about? Grandmaster? Exactly, the chess guy, right? Do you think he has played 30,000 games?
Yeah.
So you think about it, right? But then also, do you think there's somebody else who has played 30,000 games? But they are not the world champion. So there is some interesting things to it, and he actually shows that. So for example, Lewis Hamilton, right? Lewis Hamilton, of course I come from racing, right? I like him a lot. He's really incredible. But if you think about Lewis Hamilton, he's definitely at that grandmaster stage, right? He has completely mastered Formula One driving, right? Because it comes with the physical, it comes with the mental, it comes with the mechanical, right? The mechanics of the car, the technological knowledge. So really interesting if you want to reflect. But when I think back, right? 20 hours of chess. Who has played 20 repetitions or 20 hours of chess here?
I think
Yeah. So 4 people, right? Out of this whole room, yeah, or 5, have done 40 hours of chess. So you can say, if you have done 40 hours, you're already better than probably 90% of the room. And that's real, right? So really cool to understand that and reflect on where you're putting your time, right? Mr. Beast, I love that story. Mr. Beast, he gave a very good interview with Lex Friedman. Do you know Lex Friedman? So Lex Friedman, he's an MIT professor, as expert in AI, and he makes interviews. So what he does now is interviews, basically. So he makes the Lex Friedman broadcast, the biggest broadcast in the world right now. And he interviews Mr. Beast, and the interview is about 3 hours. So after 2 hours, Mr. Beast tells him how he became an expert in YouTube. And it's incredible. He said he did 18 hours of YouTube videos, watching 18 hours of YouTube videos for 5 years. 18 hours of YouTube, and it was not always an hour YouTube video, right? So they maybe looked at 20,000 different videos. What did good, what did bad, what thumbnail did good, what thumbnail did bad, camera angle. Like they would dissect those videos, and they would actually crack this virality code. So Mr. Beast is definitely a grandmaster in YouTube, right? He cracked the freaking code. It's really super interesting. And it's through repetitions. So maybe for the next presentation I need to change hours to repetitions. No, but I know that some of the tasks take an hour, for example a chess match, right? 10 minutes, some if you play quick, but an hour is usually it. So now you're an expert. So now you're this Lewis Hamilton, right? So now you're Mr. Beast. How do these people talk about their skills and abilities? Do they brag about them?
No.
Do they think they know it all?
No.
And that's really, really interesting. So it turns out that in this curve that I just mentioned, from 1 hour, 8, and you know the progression, and with it, this would be the experience of knowledge, right, or competence on the lower level. So here you would have, let's put it on a log scale. You know what a log scale is? Logarithmic scale. Yeah. So you would have like 1 hour, and then you have 10 hours, 100 hours, 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours. Okay. So it's a log scale. It's not linear. And then it turns out that confidence over competence makes this curve. Okay? And that's investigated, and the guy is called Dunning-Kruger. Right? Dunning-Kruger investigated this with scientific studies. So it turns out that after 40 hours, when they give us the pilot license, we are at the peak or the mountain of stupidity. Okay? So our confidence is huge, right? We can fly a plane now. We have the driver's license, right? We can do all kinds of stuff. We won our first chess tournament in school, right? Maybe. So your experience or competence is here, but your confidence is at the highest level. Okay? And then it turns out that you go through the valley of despair. Okay? So it turns out that at 200 hours, 400 hours, you actually see what you still miss, right? Because up to here, you only see what you already have learned. Okay? But at that point, you get some new material, you get into the tricky stuff, right? For example, flying a plane in the rain, flying a plane in a storm, right? Landing and taking off at night. Okay? So it's really interesting because at that time, at 40 hours, you're only flying sunny weather, no wind, the perfect condition to fly, okay? So you all of a sudden you get into the difficult condition to fly, so it becomes very much difficult, and you go through the valley of despair. And most of the people actually would quit here. You can understand why, right? Most of the people would quit here. But then if you go through this, which we call the slope of enlightenment, right? And you get to the 10,000 hours mastery, and then you get to the forgetfulness, right? Some of the stuff that you already knew, now you need to put behind you and go into the new stuff. Because at that point also probably there is some new findings in the field of expertise, right? Piloting evolves, Formula 1 evolves, new cars, new technology, so you need to actually get rid of some of the stuff to get into the next stage. The most important thing for me on this chart was actually to understand from a confidence level versus the first knowledge, and if you want to get here, you have to have a real passion for the topic. And the second thing is this one. So Dunning-Kruger then actually what he did was he made a test, right? So he would make a pilot test, for example, right? And he would say, what score will you make at the test, right? For people that have this amount of knowledge. And people would say, I will make this score. And then he would actually score this. Okay? Which is understandable, right? You have a lot of confidence. But what really was interesting for me is the Lewis Hamilton effect. They would actually undervalue the knowledge they have. So they would score better than the actual score they did in the test. Okay? That's really interesting, and they even say that this level, in this graph it's not showing like that. But some people say that the final confidence level never comes back to where you are here. So they call it the confidence gap. That's why you would never see an expert brag about their knowledge. Okay? Specifically if you have this type of people in the room. Right? So, super interesting. You're probably not there yet, but if you're becoming an expert doctor, you probably come to that stage at one point, right? And we need to just be aware of it, right? To still share, to still help, right? Because we at some point we would feel, at this point we would feel we can't even show those guys, right? And that's not the case. Dunning-Kruger effect. Okay. Yes, I need to speed it up. We do want to get to the idea question, right, at the end. So this is a model, they call it the IT-PI-M model, which at the end what it says is, we only have talked about expert in one field, right? But it turns out that this, when it comes to your progress in the industry, you actually have to add at least a second expertise to your field, right? If you want to be a lawyer, right, it would make a lot of sense that you add a second field of expertise, something that actually you like as well, right? Maybe you're a lawyer, but also you like a lot basketball, right? So you specialize maybe on basketball, college basketball contracts. Okay? Makes a lot of sense. So you know a lot about basketball, you know a lot about law, so you're getting this pie chart style of knowledge, right? And if you look at some of those people, they become even experts in multiple fields, right? And that's actually much more valuable than being an expert on that only. So I put this T here, I put this hammer here. Do you know why? There is a good saying in Mexico. The guy that only has a hammer, everything he looks at is a nail. Okay? So he always tries to solve any problem he sees with this one expertise. Right? A guy that only has a hammer, everything he sees is a nail. Okay? So once you come here, you can actually understand that you have different tools, you have maybe a wrench, right? And you have different tools to solve stuff that you're gonna find in your life. And then, I like those tweets. I wanted to talk more about manufacturing, but I get a lot excited about mastery, so this talk now was about mastery. Anyway, no problem. So, turns out that in manufacturing, there is also some misconception regarding how much does it take to design a product and how much does it actually take to manufacture the product. So if you think about it, how much effort and time did it take to design the iPhone? What do you think?
Years.
Okay, a lot of years. How much money and effort did it take to design the factory and the machines to build 6 billion iPhones?
Millions of dollars.
Okay? And people would underestimate that. Okay? So if you think about it, this chart shows the time, right? And it's also a log chart, right? And this shows the percentage of product cost committed, right? And the actual cost incurred. So you can see by the time you finalize the design, compared to by the time that you actually start the production, it's 10 to 100x more money that gets spent on manufacturing systems and products. And it's really interesting that Elon Musk, who is 100% software and tech guy, over the last 4 years, or a little bit more, let's say 10 years, he has found out that it's much more difficult to actually design and build the machine that builds the machine, right? So this is the case for manufacturing, and this was really interesting. So what he says is not enough talent in manufacturing and heavy industries, right? Everybody here maybe thinks they need to be a software programmer, they need to become to Silicon Valley, right? But Elon Musk, coming from there, actually believes that there is not enough people allocated in manufacturing and heavy industries. So really interesting as well. Might be something you want to explore, okay? And then this very similar chart again, right? So how much does the product design cost versus the influence of the final product, right? And how much does the final production, right, actually cost versus the influence on the product. So really interesting if we focus on innovation in manufacturing. And one final chart on that manufacturing portion, if you have heard about his new process, how he wants to assemble cars. Have you seen that? Who knows how we assemble cars? Piece by piece, and then?
On the chassis.
Exactly, we have a whole chassis, I like it. And then what we do with the chassis?
You start the art and stuff on the chassis.
First we paint, right? So we have a huge bathtub, and we put it in and we paint the whole car. Then we take off the doors, we assemble the doors, and then we assemble the car, and then we put it all together. Turns out that Elon Musk is trying to do a different thing. So he's going to build the back of the car, He's going to build the front of the car, which is not painted. Then he's going to build the body sides and paint them. And then he's going to build the doors and everything that hangs on separately and paint them. And then he's going to build the battery pack, the seats on the battery pack, and then he's going to assemble it at the end.
But he doesn't want everything on one chassis. He just
Exactly, because he says, I can have people working here, I can have people working here, I can have people working here. So they say that they can reduce the final assembly by almost 40%. And this is the first time somebody is changing this process in over 100 years. So the process you just mentioned to build the chassis, paint, and then build the car is 100 years old. It's the first time somebody comes and changes it. Okay? Very good. Last comment, because I do want to touch on the ideas. Average person has more than 6,000 thoughts per day. 6,000 lines of thought, maybe 100 ideas. But still, not 100 ideas are born every day, right? So what's the difference between an idea and a product? The execution, right? It's not the idea, it's the execution of the idea, okay? And there are some rules to it, but this is going to be another talk, maybe in 2 months or 3 months. This is the end for me today. Follow your passion, think big, start more, act today on the stuff that you're passionate about. And if you want to connect, I have a LinkedIn profile. I know for you it's super cringe, but no problem. You can see me there. Thank you.